Welcome to the wonderful world of faith, one of 7 worlds and 7 world productions, a subsidiary of Angel Grant Music. My name is Gino, and I am sole owner of Angel Grant Music as well as executive director of 7 World Productions. Continuing our series in the search of faith, here is episode number 2, where we're dealing with the stages of faith based upon Reverend Fowler's interpretation. Hope you enjoy and be inspired. Continuing our series in search of faith from our world of faith, this is our second episode where we'll be dealing with the stages of faith that were put together by a minister. And our first episode was just a general outline. This now will be a little more in detail about the stages of faith that were proposed by a gentleman by the name of James W. Fowler, who lived between 1940 and 2015. He proposed a series of stages of faith development or spiritual development across the human lifespan. His stages relate closely to the work of the Frenchmen Piaget, Erickson, and Colburn, among others, regarding aspects of psychological development in children and adults. Fowler defines faith as an activity of trusting, committing, and relating to the world based on a set of assumptions of how one is related to others and the world. The first stage of faith that he proposes is intuitive projective. This is a stage of confusion and of high impressionability through stories and rituals. This is from birth to the preschool period. And there are certain rituals that are done that the very young are exposed to the sequence of activities, including gestures, words, actions, objects, performed according to a set sequence. Rituals may be prescribed by the traditions of a community, including a religious community. Rituals are characterized but not defined by formalism, traditionalism, invariance, rule governance, sacred symbolism, and performance. I remember as a young child attending church every Sunday because my father was a minister. So that was a tradition. It was a community. It was a religious community. I remember the singing that was done with the men on one side of the church and the women on the other side. These were rituals, and they're a feature of all known societies. They not only include worship rites and sacraments of organized religions and cults, but also rites of passage, atonement, purification rites, oaths of allegiance, dedication ceremonies. I remember that my parents told me that I was christened, and that's a dedication ceremony whereby the young child is incorporated into the community, the religious community, and baptized in the same religion, and that it's a promise that godparents make that they will see to it that the child learns all about the traditions of the religious community. And so that's the first stage. The second stage is mythic literal. It's a stage where provided information is accepted in order to conform with social norms. This is the school-going period. Things like saying the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the day, and other social norms that children must learn. And this is a mythic literal stage. And these social norms are quite extensive. They're shared standards of acceptable behavior by groups. This is as well known by codified rules and laws. Institutions are composed of multiple norms. These norms are shared in social beliefs about behavior. Thus, they are distinct from ideas, attitudes, and values. Norms are contingent on context, social mood, and historical circumstances. Scholars distinguish between regulative norms, constitutive norms, and prescriptive norms. The effects of norms can be determined by a logic of appropriateness and a logic of consequences. There are three stages that have been identified in the life cycle of a norm. The emergence. Norm entrepreneurs seek to persuade others of the desirability and appropriateness of certain behaviors. Norm cascade, when a norm obtains broad acceptance. Norm internalization, when a norm acquires a taken-for-granted quality. Norms are robust to various degrees. Some norms are often violated, whereas other norms are so deeply internalized that norm violations are infrequent. Evidence for the existence of norms can be detected in the patterns of behavior within groups, as well as the articulation of norms in group discourse. So these are things that are learned in this period of this stage. Then we come to the third stage of faith, synthetic conventional. In this stage, the faith acquired is concreted into the belief system. A belief system comprises a set of mutually supportive beliefs. The beliefs of any such system can be religious, philosophical, political, ideological, or a combination of these. A philosopher, Jonathan Glover, says that beliefs are always part of a belief system, and that tenanted belief systems are difficult for the tenants to completely revise or reject. He suggests that beliefs have to be considered holistically, and that no belief exists in isolation in the mind of the believer. The insight has relevance for inquisitors, missionaries, agitprop groups, and thought police. The British philosopher Stephen Law has described some belief systems, including belief in homeopathy, psychic powers, and alien abduction, as claptrap, and says that such belief systems can draw people in, hold them captive, so they become willing slaves of claptrap. If you get sucked in, it can be extremely difficult to think your way clear again. So that's the third stage, usually in early to late adolescence. The fourth stage is individuative reflective. In this stage, the individual critically analyzes adopted and accepted faith with existing systems of faith. Dissolution or strengthening of faith happens in this stage, based on needs, experiences, and paradoxes. This is in the early adulthood. The next stage is conjunctive faith. In this stage, people realize the limits of logic, and facing the paradoxes or the transcendence of life, they accept the mystery of life and often return to the sacred stories and symbols of the pre-acquired or readapted faith system. This stage is called negotiated settling in life. It's usually in midlife. The final stage is universalizing faith. This is the enlightenment stage where the individual comes out of all the existing systems of faith and lives life with universal principles of compassion and love, and in service to others for upliftment, without worries and doubt. Middle to late adulthood, 45 to 60 years old, and plus. There are no hard and fast rules requiring individuals pursuing faith to go through all 6 stages. There is a high probability for individuals to be content and fixed in a particular stage for a lifetime. Stages from 2 to 5 are such stages. Stage 6 is the summit of faith development. This state is often considered as not fully attainable. So now that gives you a brief outline of what one individual by the name of Reverend Fowler and how he considered that such an important part of faith, these developments. the stages of faith development. James W. Fowler. If you'd like to know more about him, you can read about him. He was an American theologian who was professor of theology and human development at Emory University. He was director of both the Center for Research on Faith and Moral Development and the Center for Ethics until he retired in 2005. He was a minister in the United Methodist Church. He's best known for his book Stages of Faith, which was published in 1981, in which he sought to develop the idea of a developmental process in human faith. He was married to Lorleen Fowler. He died at the age of 75. He went to school at Duke, Drew, and Harvard. And of course, worked at Emory University most of his life. He was appointed Associate Professor of Theology and Human Development at the Candler School of Theology at Emory University. He was later named Charles Howard Candler, Professor of Theology and Human Development. He died on October 16, 2015. And this is what he's best known for. And these stages of faith development were along the lines of two other individuals, a Frenchman by the name of Jean-William Fritz Piaget. He was the director of the International Bureau of Education. He declared in 1934 that the only education is capable of saving our societies from possible collapse, whether violent or gradual. His theory of child development is studied in pre-service education programs. Educators continue to incorporate constructivistic-based strategies. He created the International Center for Genetic Epistemology in Geneva in 1955, while on the faculty of the University of Geneva. He was a great pioneer of the constructivist theory of knowing. However, his ideas did not become widely popularized until the 1960s. By the end of the 20th century, Piaget was second only to B.F. Skinner as the most cited psychologist of the era. Other people that were influencing this Methodist minister, Charles Howard Candler, was Lawrence Colburn. Colburn was born in New York, and he went to the University of Chicago, where his field was psychology. He went to the Graduate School of Education at Harvard. Even though it was considered unusual in his era, he decided to study the topic of moral judgment. In fact, it took Colburn 5 years before he was able to publish an article based on his views. He worked reflectively and extended not only Piaget's findings, but also the theories of philosophers George Herbert Mead and James Mark Baldwin. At the same time, he was creating a new field within psychology, moral development. In an empirical study using 6 criteria, such citations and recognitions, Colburn was found to be the 30th most eminent psychologist of the 20th century. Next time on In Search of Faith, we're going to take up one of the first faiths that, one of the first ones that we're going down in alphabetical order. It'll be the Baha'i Faith. We'll talk about this new religion and what it means to be a Baha'i. If you like this episode, click like and leave comments so that we can discuss this further. Also, if you'd like, please subscribe, and that way you'll receive email notifications of future episodes in this world and other worlds. Try out our other worlds, the wonderful world of art, the world of books, the world of food, the world of family, the world of games, and the world of music. Go and be inspired.